So I think that's the best long-term strategy is to be healthy in general because you need it for other reasons to preserve your thyroid function, to protect against prostate and breast cancer and a variety of other benefits that iodine adequacy has. So we'll discuss what your recommendation is for an adequate course. But just to finish up on at least finish up addressing some of the main concerns with the nuclear crisis, the typical doses being recommended by the government are somewhere over 100 milligrams as a one-time dose when you're exposed to the radiation when it's passing over, and then the iodine will bind to your receptors and you won't absorb the radioactive iodine, and then when the exposure is over, it's pretty much a non-issue, and then you're left to address the problems that we all address without adequate iodine. So it would seem to be wise to have some sort. I mean, acutely, there's not much you can do because it's going to take a while to build up your store. So acutely, it would be wise to have some on hand. Would you agree with that? And just in case, not necessarily to take, but
Well,
just in case.
I've been writing blogs about this on my website, and this last blog, I did finally come off the fence and recommend for patients to take 12 to 13 milligrams of a combination of iodine and iodide per day. And the reason for that is studies show that this dose of iodine, which is what we estimate as the average dose of iodine intake from the Japanese, will inhibit about 95 to 96% of uptake of radioactive iodine into the thyroid gland.
No?
Now, that's not perfect, but that's not bad for a
So
small dose of iodine.
a dose that's literally
Um,
10% of what the recommendation is, but to take it every day rather than as a one-time dose.
I think it's better to take it every day, and if I was on the western side of North America, I think it's appropriate to start taking it at this point and to minimize any exposure from that radioactivity that comes over. But again, iodine should be taken as part of a holistic treatment
Right.
regimen with a better diet and salt and water and vitamin C and the rest of it that I write about and talk about.
So this 13 milligram recommendation on a daily basis, is this a short-term one for this nuclear crisis, or is this the one that you would recommend long-term to achieve iodine sufficiency?
Well, I think people should have their iodine levels checked and work with a practitioner who's knowledgeable about iodine. And since the Japanese average about 12 to 13 milligrams per day, I think that's a relatively safe dose for the vast majority of people to take.
Okay.
Now, there can be people that run into problems with iodine. Those with autonomously functioning nodules can take up iodine and become hyperthyroid from that. But my experience is that very few patients over a number of years of using this dose and higher doses of iodine, and many times you don't figure out who those patients are until they take it. And once they stop the iodine, this situation will calm down. But that's very few people who run into problems with it. The vast majority of people do just fine with that dose. Kids who are smaller will need smaller doses of iodine, and
Proportionally
you know
smaller. Sure.
they don't need the same dose as an adult-sized
Right.
body will.
So it would seem that this is indeed, in fact, a good wake-up call, considering 95% of the people listening to this probably don't have enough iodine to begin with. So it would be wise just to take it for general health, independent of any nuclear crisis. But even if this cloud comes over, your supposition and belief is that, or review of the literature suggests that this relatively small dose, that's literally 90% lower than recommended, taken on a daily basis, will be just about as 95% as effective as the larger dose the government is recommending.
Well, this dose, Dr. Mercola, is still about 100 times the RDA recommendations for iodine. So there are many doctors who don't agree with this dose. But again, my experience has shown that for the vast majority of people, it's perfectly safe, and that includes people with thyroid problems, such as Hashimoto's and Graves' disease. But again, we use it as part of a holistic treatment regimen, not as a sole therapy. But I do think that this reactor number 4 in Japan, they're being very coy about this and not telling us what's going on. And if this thing has melted down, which I'm not sure if it has or not, but if it does melt down, there will be a big enough cloud to come over the United States, not to cause acute problems, but I think to cause some problems down the road with people with their thyroid hormone, with their thyroid gland, especially if they're severely iodine deficient.
Sure. So because you've got a significant clinical experience of 5,000 patients using this for over 20 years. That is certainly can't be discounted, and really valuable insights that you've generated from this, because not many people have done that. So I'm wondering if you've seen any toxicity reactions from the iodine. I mean, of course, there's local side effects, but I wonder if there's any toxicity that you've seen or read about or are concerned about, because anytime you take doses in excess of what one might typically find or recommend, then that's a concern. But I guess in light of the
Well,
fact that the Japanese are taking this dose in their diet, it probably isn't an issue.
Dr. McCall, when I lecture to physicians, I get asked this question all the time, and the first question I ask them is, have you ever seen a reaction with someone taking too much magnesium? And invariably, the hands go up, yes. We've seen that. People will get diarrhea with that. So you can see too much. You can see a reaction with anything that you ask somebody to take. And yes, I've seen reactions with iodine, but the reactions have been few and far between. And again, as part of a holistic treatment regimen, the reactions have been just not very common, and the vast majority of patients have done well with it. And I'm including patients with autoimmune thyroid disorders in this category. I believe autoimmune thyroid disorders begin from an iodine deficient state, and if they don't have an autonomously functioning nodule, again, the side effects are rare. They do occur, and usually they're easily managed by stopping iodine or lowering the dose and doing what's appropriate for them.
Okay. Now, the other concern too is we're focusing on iodine because that seems to certainly have gotten the most attention, and perhaps may be the single most important nutrient or mineral to supplement. But it would seem to me that there's a lot of other minerals in our body, and that radioactive iodine is not the only radioactive mineral that's being released in this nuclear crisis, and there's a variety of others. And it would seem wise to take a comprehensive mineral supplement to make sure your entire mineral stores are replete and you don't absorb any other radioactive isotope minerals. So I'm wondering what your views are on that.
I couldn't echo that statement any better. Absolutely. There's cesium, there's radioactive cesium, there's plutonium, there's uranium. All these things will come over in the cloud. And keeping our mineral levels up, again, ensuring adequate hydration, adequate salt intake of the right kind of salt, and I think most importantly, ensuring adequate vitamin C levels. Vitamin C can keep the antioxidant defense mechanism strong. If you do get exposed to a toxicity, vitamin C is one of your best anti-toxicity nutrients that you can take. And in this case, it's wise to not only be taking vitamin C going into this situation, but if you know that a radioactive cloud is coming, to increase your intake of vitamin C to give your body a little cushion against this toxic load that's going to occur to it. So I couldn't agree with you more. This should be part of a holistic treatment regimen for the best results.
Yeah, I'd like to recommend CoQ10 or ubiquinol, which is if you're over 40, if you're going to use it with vitamin C, because vitamin C only works when it's reduced. And once it donates that electron, it's oxidized and it really can't work. So you need something to recharge it, and the ubiquinol tends to do that. So it's a powerful synergistic combination. But how about food sources of these other minerals? Are you familiar with whey or some salts as being a useful way to increase your supply of these minerals?
Well, there's no question that eating whole food sources of minerals and which also contain vitamins as well are the best way to get nutrients in our body. And there's a whole host of things, and you've been writing about these for years, and I've been learning about them from you for years, and we use them in our practice. And again, that's part of a holistic treatment regimen, that you need to eat appropriately, take the right supplements, and exercise, and drink enough water, and get the right kind of salt in. It all makes a difference. And when something like this happens, you don't have to panic because you've already done the right things going into a situation like this.
Now,
that's where the wake-up call should come in.
I typically like the whole foods approach, although personally I do take an iodoral supplement, have for a number of years, an iodoral clone essentially. But the sea vegetables, which I haven't really integrated in my diet, but not because I don't believe in them, I just haven't done it. But it would seem to be the optimal way to do this, because that's where iodine is naturally. And assuming you can get it harvested from a relatively clean source, it's not contaminated with other heavy metals or pesticides that have creeped their way into the waterway. And do you have any viewpoints on using sea vegetables or kelp as a source of these as iodine, as an alternative to the supplements?